Hello friends, and bye lymphoma. Today we're talking about my experience with chemotherapy. I meant to post this video before my intrathecal chemotherapy video, but due to technical difficulties, I had to refilm it. In my first video, I talked about being diagnosed with stage 4 double hit non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, and now it was time to talk about getting rid of it. I was presented with two options when it came to chemotherapy. The first being the standard treatment for my disease. It carried with it a higher chance of recurrence, but it would probably be easier on me to go through, and most likely I would not end up sterile after the treatment. The second option was the more toxic treatment that would most likely sterilize me, and it would be very brutal to go through, but it carried with it a lower chance of recurrence. In my mind, there was no other option than option 2. My oncologist actually said, good, because I like that one better. Why they left this decision up to me, I am not sure. So everyone was in agreement. Chemotherapy is the therapeutic use of chemical agents to treat disease, mainly cancer. These drugs are powerful, and there are usually more than one in a regimen. The chemotherapy I was prescribed is called R-EPOCH. This stands for Rituxan, etoposide, vincristine, doxorubicin, and Cytoxan. I'm a curious creature, so I did some Googling. Never do some Googling. Etoposide sounded especially terrifying, and the doxorubicin is one of the most powerful chemo drugs that exist. It actually has a nickname, Red Devil. I literally had zero time to process any fears. I barely even had time to process the fact that I was diagnosed with this weird type of cancer that I've never heard of before, and that it was curable. I was just stoked to start this treatment and kill literally every lymphoma cell in my body. Before I could start this internet-dubbed gruesome treatment, my heart and lungs had to be tested to see if I could actually handle it. I was also tested for a bunch of different diseases. But when these tests came back, I was ready to start. If you ever watched Breaking Bad, you'll notice he sat in a room with other cancer patients getting their chemo simultaneously. This was not the case for me. My chemo was actually inpatient, and that meant I would be admitted to the hospital for a week at a time. When I got to the hospital for chemotherapy, a nurse would access my power port, meaning they would sterilize the area, stick a needle inside, and that would be like my IV. I didn't mind this. It didn't hurt me. It just felt like pressure, and it saved me a lot of pain, because if you ever had an IV in the arm, you know they suck. I actually learned that the reason they put the port in was because chemo drugs destroy peripheral veins, especially the ones that I was getting. I would start with a few 15-minute miniature bags of pre-meds. One was prednisone, which is a steroid. One is Zofran, which is anti-nausea, and Benadryl, which is an antihistamine, which prevents allergic reactions. Smash like if you've ever had a badass Benadryl nap during your cancer treatment. After the pre-meds, I would get a half-hour bag of Rituxan. Rituxan basically stops the growth of cancer cells. That was always the drug I would start with. It was a clear liquid, and I wouldn't feel any symptoms while it was infusing. After the Rituxan, a nurse would eventually come in my room dressed in all blue, and I knew it was epoch time. The first time this lovely mixture of nasty was brought into my room, I was shook. The nurse would be all decked out in hazmat chic. The bag of chemo itself was a bright orange color and looked like this. This was the bag of epoch. And the bag itself was covered by another black bag as if it was purchased from the liquor store. Looked like this. Bright orange bag of shit covered with a black bag. The liquid was in a black bag because it needed to be protected from the light. Terrifying. I had to get 4 of these bags per round, and each bag ran for 24 hours. So, one 24 hours, another 24 hours, another 24 hours, and another 24 hours. The 3 pre-meds I would get in between each bag. Sometimes the chemo itself ran for longer because these drugs are mixtures, and mixtures cause bubbles, and IV machines do not like bubbles. Bubbles set off the alarm in the IV machines. In turn, the chemo would stop pumping and the nurse would have to come in and fix the bubble situation. The sound actually still haunts my dreams. This happened so often that I would try to watch the nurses flick the bubbles out and learn how to do it myself, because sometimes it would take them 10, 15, 20 minutes to actually get in the room so the chemo could start pumping again. You know, the nurses had other patients, so it was understandable, but I wanted to get the hell out of the hospital. Once all the 24-hour bags were complete, I would end the week with Cytoxin. I hated that drug because it ran so fast, I could feel it in my nose like I was swimming in a pool. I repeated this cycle, this regimen, 6 times. A complete cycle of chemo is known in the cancer community as a round. I had 6 rounds of chemo total. And each round of chemo was unique when it came to side effects. There were the side effects I could kind of rely on that happened every time, but there were a few unpleasant surprises. The first thing I experienced was prednisone face and fluid weight gain. My face was puffy like a chipmunk. Another thing that happened right away was my taste completely went. Some people would describe it as a metallic taste, but personally, I like to describe it as it enhanced some things and dulled others. For example, I am a soda fiend, ask anyone who knows me, but during chemo, I couldn't even look at a can of soda. It just made it way too sweet. I wanted nothing to do with it. It was a mental mind flip to eat something and know it should taste a certain way, but your tongue is not cooperating with your brain and it tastes completely different. It made eating very difficult and unpleasant, and because of this, I believe that was the worst symptom. I had some other symptoms, like my gums felt swollen and weird, I had heartburn, relentless diarrhea, and my skin hurt to the touch. And I had this cold feeling of my blood being pumped out and replaced with something sinister like antifreeze or Windex. It sounds weird, but I just felt like I had been poisoned, which was a good thing because that's the point of chemotherapy. These side effects all happened in the first 4 days I was released from the hospital. I didn't really have symptoms while it was infusing. I referred to these 4 lovely days as my detox from hell. It was like the worst flu of my entire life times 10. And I knew for these 4 days I was guaranteed to feel like shit. I could set a watch to it. On day 5, I was ready to do cartwheels and jumping jacks, and I felt better than I had felt in a really long time. And that was all basic early round stuff. Round 4 is when the menopause started. It was as if my body transformed into an oven. Hot flashes as relentless as the diarrhea, if not more. Torturous night sweats. And this didn't go away after round 5. Big sad. It wasn't all bad though. Believe it or not, there were some things I didn't mind about chemotherapy. The big obvious was not having to shave every day. Chemotherapy not only affects the hair on your head, it affects every hair on your body. Imagine silky smooth legs with no effort for 6 months. The second thing I really loved about chemotherapy, are you ready for this? I have never experienced nausea due to chemotherapy. I must be one of the luckiest cancer patients ever, and I fully acknowledge this. My periods also stopped after my first round, which was awesome. And last but not least, it caused hyperpigmentation. Scientists aren't really sure why this happens, but during chemo, I always looked sun-kissed. It was a very nice change from my natural shade of vampire mashed potatoes. I always wanted to look on the bright side of my absolute shit stain of a situation. I joked about these things to lighten the atmosphere around my friends and family. because a lot of them did not take the news of me having stage 4 cancer very well. Did my situation suck? Absolutely. I felt so gross and I was so ready to get these drugs completely out of my system. I felt like my very presence made people uncomfortable. A lot of people didn't know what to say to me, and it was a very weird feeling. Everyone, including my family, had talked to me as if I would die soon. Which was weird because I never had it in my mind that I would die. I was always positive. I just thought in a few months that this would be all over and I could forget about it. But as much as it sucked, I felt like it was important to keep a positive attitude for the sake of my healing. And I can say with certainty that I was right. Okay guys, that is my experience with R-EPOCH chemotherapy. Like this video if you too find the word etoposide creepy as hell. Na zdrovia, positive vibes, and I'll see you in my next one. It's going to be radiating awesomeness. Bye!